All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is, well, it's maintaining frame, but I don't know the number because we're not doing that anymore. But
No, we can do the number. We can do the number.
I don't know the number. It's just maintaining frame
It's whatever number
number.
you want it to be. How's
Okay.
that?
One.
Yes.
Six incel traits, 2 new ways to fear men, and a one-man free society. And
Mm,
one-man free society.
yes. It's a bit of a tongue. It is a bit of a tongue twister.
Loquacious title.
Yes. Yeah. What loquacious?
I mean, yeah.
Wouldn't
It's
that mean like elaborate words?
long,
Not
like a
lots?
lot of words. Yeah.
Okay. Loquacious.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go with that.
Um,
Do you
so
want
we're going
to?
to be looking at a couple of different things today. As you can see, we have this article from the Daily Mail, which is going to be discussing like the traits of incels, kind of like describing some kind of rare,
Rare Earth.
primate creature, a rare Pokemon, so you know what you're looking for.
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah, and then we have a post from Lisa Brighton, who is an ally of ours, one of the good uns, I guess you could say,
A good
who's
one.
been rustling jimmies all over the internet.
Even though she's quite polite.
Huh?
She's quite polite. She's a very polite.
She's a really nice lady.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's very nice. Not like me. Of course,
Yes.
I think that I've just been doing this maybe too long.
Perhaps. And then we have a clip from of an interview on News Nation with Scott Galloway. If you guys don't know, Scott Galloway is a professor of NYU, and he's basically from the School of Business, so he's like a business guy, and he talks about brand strategies and digital marketing. But he was asked about men and the situation for men, and he had some things to say about it, which I will save for later, so you'll see where he lands in terms of men as productive members of society. And then we're going to end hopefully on something light if we have time, which is how to use crystals to fight the patriarchy. So hopefully you guys will stay for all of that. But before we do that stuff, I'm going to have to hand it off to Allison to do the things. So
all right. So if at any point throughout the show you want to make commentary on the 6 core traits of incels and what, there are no surprises in this article. I'll just put it that way. Or Lisa Brighton's
post
dive into feminist insanity, or Scott Galloway's whatever he is presenting. And if you want to comment on which of the 6 crystals, or the 5, it was 5, right? 5 crystals you would use to fight patriarchy, then please send your comments to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. The very best way for you to send us a comment, and with that comment, a tip, because we get the full benefit of whatever funds you send, and you get the full benefit of not sending your comment through YouTube's comment pressure system, comment enhancement system. All right. So feedthebadger.com/support, no, just the tip, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us those comments. Please do, because we like to hear from you. It's nice to know we're not screaming into the void. Sometimes it feels like we are screaming into the void. And then occasionally the void writes an academic paper and does the talk rounds based on what we screamed into it. But anyway, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send in those comments. And if you would like to support the show, the monthly fundraiser is live, and you can support us at feedthebadger.com/support. That's feedthebadger.com/support. There is only 2 days left. Well, 2 full days, a little bit more than 2 days. Because the 30th is on the Sunday, and we will be doing a Beat Saber fundraiser then. But please do help out, because we need to fill off the coffers for the month again. feedthebadger.com/support. All right, let's
all right.
Indeed.
Let's get into the first topic, the core traits of incels. This was put out by the Daily Mail's science section. Weird. Okay. So let's but we're gonna listen to this, right? We're gonna use
Yeah.
the AI
I
reader.
used the AI reader. So there
Yes.
you go.
All
Let's
right.
enjoy
So
some
let's do the
AI with our
let's look at
feminism.
the Kamala Harris robot and have it the read the article. Well, we have time codes though, so why don't we just find those?
Do you guys want me to change the background, or are you still enjoying the broccoli themed
The
vending
weird
machines?
kitchen.
Yeah. No, it's like
Yeah.
a break room in an office in an avocado toast job. Like
Say what?
it's a break room in an office, the avocado toast job. She's having
Oh,
some salad lattes, you know?
yeah.
Uh,
I don't know what's going on there.
yeah,
I
a
think
lot of
those are
green.
like banana peppers on that green fridge thing.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's just weird. All right.
Okay.
So let's jump ahead to 232 for the first uh edgy statement. So we'll just go like right here
No, actually, no. Wait,
and give
don't jump. Do the first bit. Do the first bit because we gotta learn the
all
six
right. All
cores.
right. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's get the yeah, sure. All right, I'm playing it.
The core traits of incels. Scientists
Did you
identify
speed it
6
up?
key characteristics.
What?
Did you speed up the sound? Did you
Oh,
speed up the
sure.
replay? Yeah, I don't play it at the regular speed. She's
All right.
slow.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Speeding it up.
in Disturbed, Women Hating Men by Jonathan Chadwick, Assistant Science and Technology Editor.
All right. So wait. Six scientists identify 6 key characteristics in disturbed women hating men. Not women who hate men, but men who are women hating. Let me show you guys that so you see the context. In disturbed women hating men, because that's what that is. Okay. All right. So and then she like tells you who these people are and stuff, but okay,
No,
let's
go
keep
for
going.
it.
Shed light on incels and exactly why some men are more likely to become women-hating recluses. Psychologists in Spain conducted a review of scientific studies about incels, the growing online subculture of involuntarily celibates. They identified 6 key characteristics among this group.
All right. Well, okay, credit where credit is due. They call it a subculture and not a movement.
Eventually
I
they
mean,
do.
at least that's accurate, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So, don't think they hate men or women though. But whatever. All right. So, let's now jump to the first thing.
No,
Oh.
keep going. We need to hear the 6 core traits.
Oh, I thought the time codes were the 6 core traits.
No.
All right.
We okay, you gotta understand how this is structured. You gotta understand how this is structured, Brian. We're gonna go through the 6 core traits in a sentence. Okay? We're gonna use
Okay.
in one single sentence, and then we are going to talk about how incels hate women.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Science and Technology Editor. A new study has shed light on incels and exactly why some men are more likely to become women-hating recluses. Psychologists in Spain conducted a review of scientific studies about incels.
All right. So, psychologists in Spain did this. Just for context, Spain is absolutely cooked as a feminist country. It's probably one of the most feminist countries in the world. Like, I don't know if it's either, that, South Korea, India, yeah, it's one of those. Like, they're like the most feminist. I know Spain is absolutely cooked though. But okay, anyway.
Growing online subculture of involuntarily celibates. They identified 6 key characteristics among this group: loneliness, rejection, low self-esteem, limited social support, and higher rates of anxiety and depression.
Okay. Depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, no support systems, rejection, and I do not remember the third one right now.
Loneliness.
Loneliness. Those are
Mhm.
the 6 core traits of incels. And this is the last time we're going to discuss them because the rest of this article is about how incels are violently hateful towards women.
Yeah.
They get so close and yet so far.
No, I don't think it's a mistake.
Mm.
I think they lay out all out. Here are all the things that they're dealing with, and then the rest of the article is them saying, "And here's why we shouldn't give a shit." That's what the article is, right? It's just like, and here's why we don't care. And then they lay it all out. Like they, you know, like it's like MGTOW. They used to go after MGTOW all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about MGTOW is they're literally not doing anything. They're not doing anything. They're just avoiding women, period. Avoiding dating. Some of them aren't even avoiding dating. They might just be avoiding marriage or something like that. But like they're generally avoiding relationships with women, and that's a problem for whatever reason. And they can't explain it. They just don't like the fact that there are men who are choosing to say no. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're just like doing their own thing. They're not hurting anybody. They're not like, you know, like leeching off the government for money. They're not like a drain on people. They're not becoming like, you know, welfare kings or anything like that. They're just working and keeping to themselves. And they hate that. So it's like, well, what do you
Mm-hmm.
guys want? Well, what they want is for them to be lonely and depressed and you know, unsupported, but continue to want to be like, you know, to want to be with women. They just
Yeah.
want them to want it, but not actually get it, which is kind of where incels are. Like
Yeah.
I think incels are in the position they are in because they do
Want.
want a relationship. They do want to like, you know, like start a family like any other guy does, right? Meet someone, get married, start a family. That's what most men want. And they're like, well, you haven't done it, so it must be your fault somehow. And if you become, you're not allowed to get embittered about it. You're not allowed to complain about it. You're not allowed to, you know, at least even like try to analyze it or understand it. Like you can't even like go into say, you know, evolutionary psychology or whatever, you know, sort of, you know, social dynamics and things like that.
Actual
Because if you try
facts.
to, huh?
Actual facts.
Yeah, like you're
Actual
not allowed to do
empirically
that
sound
because it
facts.
means you're trying to change something, and then they want you to stay like miserable and alone and productive for them. Like, oh, well, go be a wage slave for taxation, and
Yeah, it is sort of
that's
an interesting way to look at it, isn't it?
it
Because
is though because yeah because like again no one is saying that we need like a government to like assign men a woman. Nobody's saying that. They claim
the
this, but
wife
nobody's saying
draft.
that. Even if there are guys saying this online, they have no power to do it. They have like no ability to do it, so they're just kind of like blowing off steam, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these people, they literally only want men, and it doesn't matter if they're MGTOW or incels. Like it doesn't matter if they're this way on purpose or you know because of like limited access. Like they just can't. Like a lot of incels are guys with disabilities. You know they have
Oh
all
yeah,
kinds of
they found.
problems,
Mm-hmm.
and but they're like no, you know, like you're not allowed to complain. You're not allowed to have an issue with this. But what we will do is take your money and redirect it to women through taxation, which is what they're fine with, you know. And that's the real that's like another thing that I don't think people like talk about at all. And these articles exist to essentially say, look, this is a problem and these guys are having this problem, but don't look too closely at it. Fuck those guys. Just tell them to keep paying their taxes and shut up because we're going to give this money to women.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what's interesting is like you said, there's this dichotomy. So there are men who see this current situation and they've just opted out. That's MGTOW. And of course, the media does not like MGTOW. And again, you were right. They were all over the news for a while. And now there are incels, the involuntary celibate people who are not in the same situation as MGTOW because MGTOW have made the conscious choice, men going their own way. They've made the conscious choice to opt out. The incels have not. They want to be part of the system and they want to have a relationship. And incidentally, they're what they're willing to select in a partner is significantly lower than men who don't identify as incels. So they don't actually have higher standards. In fact, one of the markers of being an incel is that you have lower standards than average in a potential female partner, but you're still not making that. So they want to be part of the system. They want to have a female partner, but it's not happening for them. So if you think about it, there's no position that men can occupy that's acceptable. Well, I could just leave it at that. There's no position that men
wage
can occupy.
slave and you know and tax mule, that's basically it.
Yeah, but
And
not
of course it's thankless. Like it's like there's no like appreciation for that. It's just an expectation. So
Yeah. But again, this is the last time that I believe that this article ever mentions, or no, it doesn't mention it again, but there's no discussion of it. Like, well, how do we deal with the loneliness? How do we deal with the mental health issues, the depression, the anxiety, the feelings of rejection? What do we do that's proactive to help these men if they're having these issues with this kind of this thinking, which is negative, right? This negative spirals. And there's nothing. There's just immediate pivot to how these men are dangerous to women and basically why we shouldn't care. And I just was like, that is so astounding that there isn't even a buffer. There isn't even an attempt to say, yeah, they have these issues and we probably should do something about it. But the truth is that they're probably rejected because they're rejected. That circular reasoning that incels are rejected because they have a negative attitude towards women, except their negative attitude towards women came about because they were rejected. So it just goes right into that. And let's, don't take my word for it. Let's listen to the first time code.
all right, I'm going to the first time code at 2 minutes 32 seconds. And I said this before, like incel is not like a new phenomenon. There's always been like a segment of the population that just gets, they just don't find anybody. And they usually find another way to, have a purpose. But they're treating this like this is some kind of new thing,
Yep.
So like the reproductive the reproductive bottleneck is real and it exists and it happens. But anyway.
Violence. Incels claim to be rejected because they are unattractive, have mental health problems, anxiety, depression, are neurodivergent autism, or are socially inept. Young men and boys who identify as part of the incel subculture regard sex as a transactional act, devoid of emotional ties, but also as a fundamental right that is.
Okay, this is incorrect. And what do you mean by a fundamental right? Can people be upset about not getting something without saying that they're entitled? Like, do you mean that if somebody doesn't get something and they feel upset about it, that means that they're automatically entitled? So anyone who is upset about never getting a house, well, you just feel entitled. In fact, you're equivalent to someone who would steal a house. People who are upset at the price of food, well, you're just entitled and you're equivalent to somebody who would steal food. Like, do you see the logic here?
Yeah, I know. I do. It's like I said, it's poisoning the well on purpose. Yeah, because again, like anybody who just says, I wish I blank, doesn't matter. I wish I could have this. They're like, "Oh, you feel entitled to that, huh? You're going to like force the government to like, have the government force people to give that to you." It's like, "No. That's projection because I'm pretty sure it's women that want things like free healthcare, free birth control, free abortions, free housing. They want a Lamborghini. That's why they voted for Zoran Mamdani, because he's going to give everybody Lamborghinis. So yeah, you guys are totally projecting. I think that in general, most people who I guess we would classify as incels are just like guys that are dealing with unrequited love or they're lonely. They want to earn a relationship. They don't want to be given something. They want to feel like they did it, because if you were assigned a woman, like for example, hypothetically speaking, you would spend your whole life thinking, like, does she even care about me, or is she doing this because she has to? Like, I don't think it makes no logical sense. I think in general, people want to be wanted. They want to feel desired. They don't want to just have. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, is that let me see the
and it's
codes
also
here.
inconsistent with what they said at the beginning. So feeling rejected, social isolation, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and then the sixth one that I'll probably always forget. But these are not the emotional expressions of someone who feels entitled. Like, someone who feels entitled doesn't care about being rejected to by what they're entitled to. Like, they don't internalize it. It's something offensive and anger inducing. And yes, they get angry, but it's a different thing if you think about it. Like if you genuinely feel entitled to something, you're not going to feel rejected when you don't get it. Right? Different emotion entirely. And yeah, sure, you can feel resentment and anger, but it's not like, it's not going to have that component of rejection. It's not going to have that component of anxiety and depression and feeling socially isolated. Like this is, and to say that it's all transactional, that they want a transactional relationship. Well, a transactional relationship doesn't come with the emotions that would resolve depression, anxiety, loneliness, feelings of rejection and social isolation. So what are you even talking about? Why would they be feeling these things if all they want is a transaction, is what I'm getting at? They wouldn't be. They would only feel these things if they want a genuine connection, and they feel that that connection affirms their human worth. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're completely flattening this situation. And you're right, they're poisoning the well because they want to dismiss. This is more of, this is somebody else's problem field. They're applying as somebody else's problem. You know, incels.
Well, I think there's another reason they're doing this too. I think the real reason for the article is actually not to do with incels at all. I think it's to defend something, to protect something that's losing the PR war a lot lately. And I think they're going to give it away right up here, because I want you to, we'll listen to the next time code, and then you let me know what is actually at stake in this article.
But also as a fundamental right that is denied to them as a result of feminism and female empowerment. Incels blame women for their inability to have relationships, and some even contend that the denial of sex by women is a punishable crime.
Yeah, no, they don't say that. But let's see if there's maybe, is there like a source question mark?
No, this is all just, oh, this is a vulnerable population. Well, let's spit on them. Let's make them look, let's demonize them. Let's show how criminal they are so we don't have to care. You're right. It's just that, and also we're going to defend feminism, even though feminism's stated aim in many instances was to destroy the family. Well, guess what happens? That leaves a whole bunch of men shit out of luck, disenfranchised through no fault of their own, but simply because the overwhelming social narrative positions relationships as something toxic to women and men as something no sane woman would choose to have in her life. Okay, so that basically we have created what they did with the Black community. They outcompeted Black men in their own families. The government outcompeted Black men in their own families, disenfranchised Black men in their own families. And we can't talk about that because it's sexist, even though if you think about it, it is actually, that is institutional racism. But anyway, they outcompeted Black men in their families. Black men were destroyed. And then they also promoted this attitude for everyone that it is bad for a woman to have a man, that he is dangerous, that he is useless, that he is lazy, that he is a net drain on her. All of this feminist rhetoric. It's overwhelming. It's not $1 trillion narrative, guys. It probably moves about $1 trillion of mostly government money, taxpayer money, or loss of purchasing power in terms of every time you go to the grocery store and eggs cost $50, a dozen eggs cost. Think about the government programs you are financing, because they don't print money. What they do is they create another treasury, which is a giant packet of government debt, puts more money into the economy, which inflates the whole thing. So you are paying that through your increased the price points in the grocery store. You are paying that through taxes. You're paying that through sales tax, paying into a narrative that men are awful people. And that's the most egregious part. Men are paying for their own destruction in this system. They're literally freaking paying for it.
Well, they're having the money taken from them, and then it's being repurposed to destroy them. Yes.
Yes. to
They
destroy
are being forced to pay for their own destruction.
to destroy their sense
Yes.
of self-worth and destroy their opportunities in terms of having families and relationships. It's unfreaking it is an injustice. Tremendous injustice. And incels are a victim of it. In other times and periods, these men would have partners. And it wouldn't just because of arranged marriage. It would be because it would be.
Oh, Allison dropped. Allison dropped out of the call. Hopefully she figures it out and comes right back. Let me see. Yeah. So while waiting for Allison to come back. Oh, there she is. What happened?
Void cat.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I saw like the camera was starting to like get shutter a little bit. Okay. So
right. This one.
That's okay. You
Get
were
away
saying
from the camera. Okay. All right. I'm going to squish that cat. Squish. I'm going to squish you. You're not getting more food. Okay. As I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted.
I'm going to take a screenshot of the cat and give it glowing eyes. Go ahead. Just take a screen cap and then put a glowing eye filter on it. And then write like release me or something at the bottom. But okay, go ahead. Finish your comment.
Something out. All right. The rhetoric around this is that women had to have husbands because in order to take care of themselves, which is no. Okay. Which is nonsense. All right. First of all, there was a much stronger social expectation that relatives take care of any unmarried woman. Right. So if you were unmarried, you would be living with your father, with your brothers, with your uncles. You'd probably have a ward. You would be taken care of. So you didn't automatically have to get married to get taken care of. And here's the other thing. Women brought dowries, they brought money, and they often brought some form of labor into the marriage. So it wasn't a situation where there wasn't actually also dependency the other way. Men were dependent on women's labor. That's why they got married. It was like a mutual economic exchange, hopefully with some friendly affection at some point. That's the way it worked. So it was never a situation where women were asymmetrically reliant on men. Men and women were reliant on each other economically. And they came together and they formed partnerships. And in those eras, these men wouldn't have been disenfranchised. Right? They would either have gotten married or maybe they would have ended up in a monastery. Okay, going into the priesthood, or maybe the university.
Or they would have ended up like becoming, philosophers or scientists or committing themselves to some.
Yeah, exactly.
Craft. Yeah.
So I mean, it's the situation is because we have failed men, and we've made them pay for that, which is
still making them pay for that.
Just astounding to me. It's astounding to me that taxpayers pay for this. They pay for these narratives. And you know who benefits? There's only two groups of people who benefit from this. Feminists and divorce lawyers. The two most wonderful groups of people in our society ever. Oh, aren't we all happy that we are making feminists and divorce lawyers rich and content? Okay, let's keep going.
Right. So there's a little bit more of this, but ultimately, I think this video,
and the Democratic Party, because they are
some in the. I think that somewhat, but I think it's mostly what you said. It's feminist activists, it's the academics, it's the people in media, that all push this stuff.
Yeah, the people who have
divorce lawyers and also corporations. They get to sell twice as much junk to people. So. But okay, let's. I just wanted to point out that ultimately this article is about defending feminism because feminism itself is becoming less and less popular. It's still like ubiquitous. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pretending like it's over, but if it starts to show a little bit of like chinks in the armor, then that's like really happening because these articles come out and they're like, trying to like, look, if you don't have feminism, men are going to throw you in chains. Men are going to chain you to the stove. You're going to be turned into breeding, like breeding chattel again, which of course never happened. But it's all this scary stuff, and incels are part of that. They're scary because they might just blow up one day and shoot up a school. Oh my God, right? And this is what they're doing, is they're saying you need us, so you have to keep supporting us. That's ultimately all this is. But okay, we got 45 seconds left, or no, 30 seconds left in this clip. So let's finish it.
As the normal or preferred sexual orientation, and that only men who conform to heteronormative standards of masculinity, such as strength, aggression, and emotional stoicism, are considered attractive.
Is it okay for me to say that heterosexuality is normal? Like it is, okay? Like it is. It's normal. Is that okay? I don't have anything against you if you're gay. But if you are gay and you're watching this, can you also just like co-sign, is it not the case that heterosexuality is normal? It's like the reason why you're here. Can we just, because I don't know what this is about, but it's just factually untrue. Okay. So let me know. Is there something wrong with that? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think it's not a value judgment. It's just a statement of fact. We
Okay,
are
so
here because of homosexuality or heterosexuality. Not homosexuality. We're here because of heterosexuality.
Okay.
So,
I just want this is something that really occurred to me when she said that incels feel like they're entitled to sex. Well, I am pro-choice. However, I want to point something out. The argument, first of all, that it should be government funded or available anywhere that people don't necessarily, like the locals don't necessarily want to have it, is predicated on the idea that women are entitled to sex for entertainment. Right?
yeah.
Are you really entitled to sex for entertainment? Like, are you like, if you think your birth control should be paid for, are you entitled to have other people pay for the fact that you're using sex as a form of entertainment? Yes. And incidentally, I noticed that not only do women say that they need birth control, their birth control paid for, so that they can use sex as a form of entertainment, they also say that sex is a terrible form of entertainment, which is really interesting. So all of these arguments that women are owed birth control by virtue of, should be taken out of the taxes, are based on this idea that access to sex is a right.
Right. For
now,
sure.
Yeah.
As usual, they project.
Yes. Like, what's the difference?
Nothing. Somebody, I just want to read this because it's funny. So, FL Tourist says Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble were both incels. So I gotta disagree with you on that. Obviously, you're probably joking because Fred totally got Wilma pregnant. That's where Pebbles came from, and you could see like for a while in the show, Wilma was like carrying the baby. So Fred obviously did that. And Barney and Betty, they didn't have a kid. They ended up adopting one. That was Bam Bam, but they were trying because they would say so. They were saying we were trying to have a baby and we can't have one. So that means that Barney was hitting it like constantly, and it just didn't work out for them. But they did get a kid eventually. So no, not at all. Those are your ancestors. If it weren't for Fred and Barney, you wouldn't be here. I'm just saying, the ancient peoples. All right. Anyway, so Fred was getting it, and Barney was too. Okay. All right. Anyway, so that was the other thing too is it's weird that they like talk about heterosexuality, and it's like weird that it's normal, and then they go into heteronormative standards of masculinity. This is how they describe them, such as strength, aggression, and emotional stoicism. So apparently, there are no gay men who are strong, aggressive, or emotionally stoic, because that's a heteronormative trait. Have you seen, what they're doing with this like sleight of hand, where first they say, well, here are these traits that are considered masculine that are bad, and then they say that they're not masculine traits, they're heteronormative traits, which means a gay man can't have these traits either, because that would still be bad even if he's gay. So you understand that what they're attacking isn't heterosexuality, but
It's
they're
just massive.
using this like let's say this alternative way of looking at sexuality itself. So like for most of our time here on earth, for most of human history, like 99.9%, heterosexuality was the norm and it was a standard. It wasn't something that was measured. It was simply human behavior just playing out its, instincts biologically. And that was just how we lived. That was how we reproduced. And that was just how things were. And then some of what caused that was like, you know the how dimorphic our species is. So men being men, generally having like traits that were more like, not that there was like one or the other, but because obviously there were men who have feminine traits we would consider to be feminine, and there are women who would have traits that we would consider to be masculine. But there are enough divergences due to biological differences, evolutionary differences, and sexual selection differences. Like women were choosing men to have babies with based on certain traits that they liked in them, and then they carried those traits on to their kids, and then so on, right? And we have gotten now to the point where they're trying to dismantle um, masculinity itself by calling it toxic and now heteronormative. But the attack is on masculinity, full stop. It's just what it is. And of course, they have a specific definition for that. But if women display this, which, in those girl boss movies and stuff, if they display strength, aggression, and stoicism, that's totally fine. Because women, when they display masculine traits, it's not masculine anymore, you know? And it's, which means it's not negative anymore. It's positive now. You see what I'm saying?
Masculine traits that they say are masculine are totally distorted. So women don't actually show protectiveness, provision towards men when they're vulnerable or
Oh, they
anything
do
like
it
that.
in a fantasy sense. So what I mean is, like, when they see it in like like when you see it represented in fiction, not in reality, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like when,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that they basically say that masculinity is all of these toxic traits, like contempt for others, dominance, aggression, being very, angry at slights and willing to fight at the drop of a hat. They don't say that masculinity is honor, the ability to take risks, the desire to protect and provide for others. So they don't embody those traits. These boss babes, they don't protect or provide for men or children or whatever. They just are aggressive and nasty and undermining to the men around them, and they so that they're not just distorting, not just telling women to be masculine, they're distorting what masculinity is. But then when women embody this distorted toxic traits, and it's not toxically masculine traits, they're just toxic traits,
yeah.
then they say, oh, that's empowerment. So it's like multiple layers of distortion going on.
Hmm.
A Russian doll of distortion. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about reframing everything as like always men always bad, women always victims or good. So, all right, let's continue.
System is the 80/20ths principle, the belief that 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men, the core feelings that can drive males to inceldom.
Just, it's true. It's observable.
It's an observable phenomenon. And it might be not necessarily driven biologically. Like I said, maybe we can stop having the taxpayers pay for this narrative.
Subsidize this.
Yeah, just see what happens, Like I've had a feminist recently who was arguing with me, and she said, "You want to force women to marry men." I'm like, "No, why don't we just start by defunding all of these projects into destroying the relationship between men and women by making men out to be toxic to women and toxic to society. Why don't we just stop that?" I mean, that's a tall order since it's like $1 trillion industry, but we could stop that and see if things improve. Stop picking at it. Maybe it'll heal. But no,
Yeah.
she has to go right to, "Oh, you want to force?" No. No, just stop forcing the other thing. See what happens. And yeah, okay.
All right, next time code. It's right here. So
Loneliness. 2, rejection.
Oh, yes, they
3,
did
low
repeat it.
self-esteem. 4, limited social support. 5, anxiety. 6, depression. The study also explains the terminology incels use, akin to speaking in an exclusive
You would think
mode.
that at that point you would segue into describing some of the effects of these things, how they manifest, maybe some solutions, but no, we're just going to pivot back into they are the threat. And I just want to point out that the things that incels are the exact opposite of what feminism says toxic masculinity is.
yeah, well, that's because again, it's not about it's not about anything but demonizing men, no matter what stage of life they're in, no matter um what their personality. So like, if you are successful with women, then you're a bad person who hates women somehow. So like, if you're like and you have to compare you to Andrew Tate, just like a guy who's successful with women. Like you're doing well, you're looks maxing, you're getting dates, and you're like, spinning plates and all of that. Oh, because they hate the PUAs too, right? So they'll be like, well, you guys hate women because you use them and take advantage of them or whatever it is. So if you're successful with women, it's bad. If you are uninterested in women, like a MGTOW, it's bad. And if you're unable to get with women, it's bad. You're an incel. And if you're just like trying to like, you're not even concerned with women's issues, and instead you're basically choosing to focus on men's issues, like an MRA, guess what? It's bad. So no matter what, there is no like you can't
There's no
win
winning
unless you're
except
basically throwing men
submission.
under the bus. Like no, there is no form of masculinity that works. Even if you're a gay man, guess what? You are the straight white men of gay people, of the LGBTQ community, because you're still super privileged, so you deserve nothing. So, yeah.
So I do have somebody to thank you that we probably should do.
All right.
So I want to thank Mario, who put $50 into the hat for the fundraiser, which is at feedthebadger.com/just or feedthebadger.com/support. So thank you, Mario. Very much appreciated. It's me, Mario. I should.
Wahoo!
Thank you. Thank you for making that less awkward, Brian.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
And again, if you want to send us a comment at any point throughout the show, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you want to support the show and join our very generous supporters that allow us to predict what people will be talking about 5 to 10 years in advance, then please do so at feedthebadger.com/support. All right.
All right. Let's keep going.
Public don't generally understand it. Women are commonly referred to as animals, as dangerous and dirty as pigs, cattle, snakes, and insects. Food, roast beef, inanimate objects.
No, well, roasties is something else, I think. What's a roasty anyway? No, I think roast beef is what they're saying, because it's a little bit lewd.
Yeah.
But it's funny. But like, so what? Women do this to men all the time. Like you can put it on TV. Like my men don't care. Whatever.
Okay. Yeah, hunk, stud. Yeah, those are actually the hunk of me. Stud.
No, chud.
Chud. Yeah, you're right. Chud.
No, I mean derogatory things about
No, but
men.
we're deep into double standard territory, Brian. You can't bring this stuff up. But actually, I will bring it up. So there's been recent research on misogyny and misandry in extremist Reddit communities. Actually, I think extremist communities, period. A key study recently addressed the balance between misogyny, hatred or prejudice against women, and misandry, hatred or prejudice against men in online extremist spaces. It's titled Women Who Hate Men, a comparative analysis across extremist Reddit communities, published in Scientific Reports, April 21st, 2025. The peer-reviewed paper, authored by researchers, including those from the University of Bologna and other institutions, provides empirical evidence suggesting that these forms of gendered hate speech are structurally and linguistically comparable in intensity within such communities. Get this, guys. In extremist, gender-based communities, the hatred is fairly comparable. Although I would question that slightly. Study overview and methodology. Okay, we don't need to go into that. The study posed 3 research questions. Are there systemic differences in perspectives, male to female versus female to male hate? Is misogyny more prevalent than misandry? Is gendered hate speech tied to the community's dominant gender, or is it a broader feature of extremism? Key findings. Evidence of equivalence. The results indicate no systemic discrepancies between misogynistic and misandrist communities across the analyzed dimensions. This implies that both forms of hate operate at comparable levels in terms of expressions, emotional intensity, and structural reinforcement. However, this is good. It's a nice start. However, there is a confound that these scientists didn't address. They conflate hatred of feminism with hatred of women. All right. And that is going to distort their results. However, it's a good step. Linguistic and toxicity levels. Both sets of communities showed bimodal distributions in toxicity scores, meaning a mix of mild and extreme content. However, misogynistic communities edged slightly higher in overall toxicity, but this was not statistically significant enough to suggest overrepresentation. Common themes include victimhood narratives with terms like misandry used in misogynist spaces to frame feminism as anti-male. See what I'm saying? Mirroring how misogyny is invoked in misandrist ones. Emotional analysis. Emotions such as anger and disgust were equally prevalent, reinforcing echo chambers in both directions. For instance, fear of the opposite gender was a shared motif, driving isolationist ideologies. Network structures. Interaction graphs revealed closed triads of extreme users in all communities, indicating that hate spread similarly regardless of gender focus. This supports the view that extremism, not gender, is the core driver. The authors conclude in addressing the phenomenon of online gendered hate speech, both male to female and female to male perspectives should be taken into account, thus recognizing equal importance to both misandry and misogyny. They emphasize that misandry, often understudied compared to misogyny, warrants equal scrutiny to combat online toxicity holistically. Well, unfortunately, there's a huge, I can just see these researchers, doing this stuff in a little corner. Meanwhile, the gigantic monster of feminism, feminist academia looks on, just waiting for the moment to cancel them, and it's like, this is a good start, but you have to realize that misandry is entrenched. Feminism is misandry. It pretends like it has an excuse, but it has never proven its core premises. There's no neutral science that has ever proven feminist core premise. So it remains a premise that was simply assumed, and then everything else was buttressed off of that. And that premise is horrifyingly anti-male. The idea that men oppress women, horrifyingly anti-male, and never proven. That's it, folks. It is not something, in fact, it's solipsistically proven. What happened is feminists made that decision. They basically enshrined misandry into their beliefs about society. Blaming an entire group of people would be considered racism, anti-Semitism, something-ism in any other context. Saying that an entire group of people is responsible for an invisible and systemic oppression of your group would be very suspect as a conspiracy in any other context. And then a saying that somehow this is a result of socialization, not the bio group that they're part of, would never fly in any other context, because feminists have never explained how it is that every man on earth is socialized the exact same way across ethnic, cultural, national, religious, and honestly, considering the behaviors that they're saying are socialized, species grounds, like across species. This is a cultural socialization that crosses species, right? And they have never explained how that happens, because there is no explanation. There is no possible explanation for how all human beings are socialized to the same, or all men are socialized to the same thing. There's no explanation. The only way that socialization really comes in is that feminists assert that men can be socialized out of it. There's some sort of weird, ubiquitous X factor that's one-to-one with every man on the planet, but feminists can socialize them out of it. But it's not biological. Bullshit. So all of these factors mean that feminism is utterly illegitimate as a concept, as an academic concept, as an intellectual concept, as a political concept, as a moral concept. It has no grounds for legitimacy, and it is directed at all men in our society. Okay? Our society is inherently misandrous, and until these researchers step out, they're the fish, they got to get onto land, they will never understand the true extent of the ocean. All right. Okay, implications in broader context. These findings challenge narratives that downplay misandry as negligible, highlighting how both amplify division in extremist spaces. Okay, but you got to now turn that lens on feminist academia and its influence on law and policy, on NGOs, on government shadow budgets. The study notes a publication bias. Scopus data shows far more papers on online misogyny, underscoring the need for balanced research. Okay. All right. Let's continue.
All right. Let's continue.
Sperm containers and androids, cyborgs or humanoids. Incels use the term femoids, female humanoids, to dehumanize them by turning them into a subhuman on which to legitimately apply violence. The study authors explain.
No, I think they're just, I mean, look, they're angry, they're frustrated, I get it. But I don't think that they're looking for a reason to apply violence by changing like the language. But it's interesting that you point that out. So like what happens when you call people Nazis for 10 years? Could that maybe result in violence? I mean, nobody likes Nazis. Maybe we can do something about it. What does that look like? What happens when you call people like misogynists for 10 years, that they hate women and they want to rape them and kill them and turn them into slaves? Do you think that maybe someone might try to do something about it?
Yeah, someone can
Are there any consequences for that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or I mean, some might actually just get angry at the people who are saying it. And she's how unbelievably unsupportable. I'm being abused, and I feel some anger towards those that abuse. Misogynist. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I have here actually some extra stuff. I might not be able to go through all of it, but I'm going to do a shout out to Therapy Snack, which you can find on Stack. And one of the things that he proposes, looking at, because he's been looking at the data, he's a criminology student, and so he looked at this data, and he says this: the clearest and most consistent finding is the nearly universal experience of abuse and bullying among incels, particularly in the social context. While further research in this area is certainly required, this finding becomes rather instructive when assessing underlying theory and explanation, and would generally appear to explain, at least in part, pathways to inceldom. One of the most notable aspects of the incel movement, however, is group heterogeneity. Analysis of the incel community has found a clustering of traits. So there's a bunch of different groups within the in the incel community. This group this multitude of people or different types of people presents regarding incels who have committed vast violence, wherein they appear to be notably situated in the externalizer category. Okay, so what it means is they externalize their problems. A lot of incels internalize them, right? So there's an alternate theory for where incel violence comes from. There has been an implicit assumption that the causal agent aspect of incel violence is gendered in nature. In some sense, such a conclusion is rhetorically obvious given the social scripting. However, there are some notable issues with this approach when a more detailed analysis is undertaken. Firstly, incel violence is incredibly rare, despite what might expect from a movement that is frequently assessed as having pervasive misogyny steeped in toxic grievance. The subversion of expectations regarding conversion to lethal violence against others has impacted more than the political radicalization arguments. with theories in evolutionary psychology, namely the young male hypothesis, similarly predicting violent spikes in such a population, leading to the offering of a sedated male hypothesis to explain the suppression of predicted violence. Of course, so essentially what they're saying is that science would predict that this population would be vastly more violent than they are. So because they aren't, then they had to propose a counter, like a little epicycle to explain this, which is male sedation hypothesis, which is that society sedates incels with pornography and games. However, while the evolutionary psychology approach is certainly reflexive of a more biologically coherent and grounded theoretical milieu, on its own, it appears to have yet to be fully integrated into the wider mass violence phenomenon to which incel violence is frequently evoked. So when we talk about the wider mass violence phenomenon, we're talking about other groups where young men who do not have romantic prospects engage in political violence in order to advance an ideology. Often these young men are called martyrs, or they may be in other groups in which they engage in violence against their political opponents. You might even argue that society itself has a very, very powerful track record in mobilizing disenfranchised young men to do violence in order to solve its political quandaries. So the biggest radicalizer of young men, if you're going to call radicalization basically saying, "Hey, you go kill people because you'll be a good person in our eyes," is society itself, which is probably why we're not seeing a lot of real insight into this problem. Furthermore, despite the young modifier on both theories, at least some larger data sets, the median age of offense in the incel population exceeds that of the general homicide population. Okay, so this is just some more information. Furthermore, incel violence is conducted by offenders without long histories of violent crime and minimal, if any, criminal convictions. In fact, the overwhelming majority, and here's the big thing, the overwhelming majority of violence risk appears to be directed towards the self. So this is something I've said so many times. Men are far more likely to kill themselves than they are ever to kill another person, ever. And yet, what does this article focus on? The vast majority of men who are suffering the loneliness, depression, anxiety, rejection, social isolation, right? They're going to kill themselves. They're going to unalive themselves, kill themselves. You know what? Fuck YouTube. They're going to kill themselves. Okay, that's what they're going to do. And in fact, this article makes that a certainty. Because instead of refocusing on how to help these young men, it refocuses on the burden that they are to the greater society. So it really asks the question, is that the outcome these people want? Do they just want these guys to disappear themselves? Right?
They wouldn't have a problem with it if it happened.
No, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't have a problem with it. They probably there could be another thing they could blame them for.
Okay, so here's what
They'd probably be like,
researchers
"Why don't you guys share your feelings more?" Which, of course, they are doing that now, and people are upset about that. So
one of the things that we've brought up a lot on this show is that men without a sense of connection to the work of society are vulnerable to narratives that give them a purpose, even if those narratives are violent. And this is across the board. Like these narratives, these ideologies, and that includes like Nazism originally. It caught root with like these disaffected groups of young men. And this is happening with the incel community, and people are mistaking the forest for the trees for the forest, really. It is critical to digress in order to address the obvious aspect regarding the killings committed by those in the incel community, which is that they often contain overtly ideological or political positions, including by the offenders themselves. A frequent habit, particularly by non-criminologists, that's a little bit of throwing shade there, is to take offenders at their word. A tempting but highly fraught research tactic. An excellent example of this, particularly given calls to classify incels and their violence as terrorism, is an MMS research conducted in terrorism contexts. Boy, we just got our entire channel yeeted for using the T word. Surprisingly, actors of suicide attacks were historically considered to, of all things, be suicidal. Rather, ideological fervor was considered the driving force of suicide attackers, relying on
Allison, Allison, your thing froze, and she's gone. Probably Void Cat again. Um, let's see if she comes back in a second. It's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked. Everybody sucks. You don't know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. All right, I'm gonna play some more of this clip. Allison kind of threw me a curveball when out of the blue she pulled out a massive study and started reading the whole thing, which is weird because we have a lot to get through. But you know, fuck eating, right? All right, let's play some more of this. Let me see while I'm waiting for Allison to come back.
More specifically, attractive, sexually successful women are known by incels as Stacy's, while Becky's are supposed to be normal or relatively attractive women. Chads, physically attractive alpha male figures at the top of the male hierarchy, are also resented by incels and seen as part of the problem. Ranking below this alpha.
Yeah, so it's almost like they're not just annoyed with women, they're also jealous of men that are doing better than they are. And so it's not really a hate thing, it's just envy, which is you know, pretty normal. Let's see what's Allison just sent me a message. She had a blackout. Uh-huh. Sorry, guys. All right. So serenade us, Brian. Get it. Felix the cat was an incel. Yes. Felix the cat. He was MGTOW. He didn't need anybody. A lot of cartoon characters were just MGTOW, except for Droopy. He was getting it. Okay. So let's keep going while Allison's doing that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. This time code's kind of lame because it's just like describing, like, you know, what like all the things that incels believe. It's almost like, guys, like, yeah, we've known this stuff for a long time, and it's not baseless, anyways. So, let me see. I can just read some of this. So I think I will. Let me just find, because then it might be better than hearing like a robot say it. So, um, all right. So we'll jump to the article itself. Let me see if you guys can see it. I'm just gonna check and see. Yep, you guys can see it. All right. And uh in the article, this is it's showing clips from, or like images from the show Adolescence. So let's go ahead and read through some of this article. All right. Ranking below this alpha male category of chads are betas, men of average appearance and with the ability to maintain a relationship, and then incels, males too unattractive to achieve sexual success. This is how they're describing it. All right. Incels believe that women take advantage of betas financially or for other reasons, and that betas end up being cheated on and used. I don't know how widespread this belief is, but we do have a system, the divorce system, child custody, alimony, etc., that essentially incentivizes women to do this to men. And in fact, divorces can be very profitable for women in the right kind of marriage. So why wouldn't they do that? And I'm not saying that they're all prone to doing it, but the incentive structure is there. And this is why Allison said that divorce lawyers benefit a lot from this kind of this narrative about men. So let me see what you guys are saying. I see the vocal chat, or the special chat is pretty special today. So let's see. I want to see what you guys are saying. Luke Skywalker was an incel. No, I think he was focused on being a Jedi. That's how you become a Jedi. You don't get laid. I don't know if you guys know that, but you can use the Force. Uh, you guys aren't saying much. You're just kind of being silly. That's fine. Be silly. Hang out. That's cool. I will see if Allison comes back. I'm not sure if she will. Apparently, they have a blackout. I guess it's really cold up there. So, all right. Then they explain that terminology for this comes from the Matrix. Blah blah blah. Don't really care. And then of course they go to Elliot Rodger because this is like the go-to example. Today, incels glorify Elliot Rodger, a 22-year-old who penned a 137-page incel manifesto before killing 6 people and injuring 14 others in California in 2014. Okay, notice this is like a trick, okay? Whenever they tell you this sexist person hurt people, they usually mean men, because if they hurt women, they would say women. But when they don't say women and they say instead people or students or some kind of gender neutral term, it means that they hurt men. And in Elliot Rodger's case, I believe, and I could look it up to confirm it, but it was a minority of women, maybe 2, but mostly it was men. So we're looking at, killing 6 people. I think 4 of them were men. Some of them were his roommates, and injuring many others. Mostly men were hurt and killed by this. And yeah, he was, I guess he was struggling with relationships. But if you guys don't know this, Elliot Rodger's problem was he had an abusive stepmother, and that's where the source of a lot of his ire came from. His father was a very rich Hollywood producer, but he was not around because he was flying around doing things, you know? And so Elliot Rodger lived with a woman that was not his mother. His mother stayed in, I forget, but it was some European country, and she stayed behind there when his father moved to Hollywood with his new wife. And his new wife treated Elliot Rodger like shit until she and basically demanded that she have her own kid. She didn't want to raise him. And so he ended up basically just like an absolute mess. And eventually, because he desired to be with his mother, he started to desire women, and he wanted a specific kind of woman because he was looking for, I guess like something normal and peaceful, but never got it, unfortunately. And he ended up lashing out. The supreme gentleman, as it were. So, how do they explain men who have hurt or killed their partners? They were ideologues of a movement that what? Ideologies of movements who are married. I don't. Are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Your phrasing is nonsensical. So, Shaft 5 Thing says Intel is another word for lonely white man syndrome and guys who can't get girlfriends because I'm an asshole to women and they wonder why. Actually, a significant number, maybe even a majority of incels are not white. They're minority men, and they're men with disabilities and some mental health challenges and autism and stuff. But nice try, Shaft. Of course, you don't care about that because you're interested in pushing a narrative of your own. So, yeah, sorry to break it to you, man, but most incels probably are actually not white. Okay, but anyway, like Elliot Rodger was half Asian, I think. Yeah, he was like he was half Asian, and I don't know what the other half was. So, 4 years later, 25-year-old Toronto incel Alec Manassian, it's Alec, not Alex, carried out a deadly rampage that left 10 people dead and injured 16 others. Again, that's not true because while he said what he needed to say during the interview with police, it was later revealed that by his lawyer and others that it wasn't because of an incel ideology, but rather because of basically workplace stressors that drove him over the edge. So it was his job. It wasn't, and he actually had a pretty normal, like, social circle. So that's not true either. And this was debunked years ago, like years ago. And yet these people are still going to like trot out the same old talking points because that's the purpose of it. It's not really to address the issue. It's just to like maintain the frame, as it were, of, the incels being very dangerous people, despite the fact that they're probably like the least effectual people. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a truth. So, all right. Let's see. What are you guys saying in the chat? If I'm the president, I think I'm entitled to poop my pants. Thank you very much. Well, that's your business, not mine. Get Islam out of America now. Working on it. I think it's not up to me. Let's see. You already read that. You haven't said anything, Shaft, since then. So I guess you're just walking away from that discussion now that you know that. All right, and then there was Jake Davidson went on a shooting spree in Plymouth, killing 5 people, including a father and his 3-year-old daughter. Again, remember, whenever they say people, they mean men. If there was women, they would just say it. If a guy killed 10 women, they would say a guy killed 10 women or girls. But if they say people were killed, it usually means men. They don't want to refer, because then you have to like think, oh, there are male victims here, right? And that's just not important to these people. A new study published in Aggression and Violent Behavior says most incels don't engage in physical violence, but the normalization of misogynistic and aggressive rhetoric online creates an environment where violent fantasies and actions are validated. Again, what about assassinations of like political pundits and stuff? Does that count for? Allison said she's getting to another location. All right. Furlog the Giant says, "Lol, you never had a girlfriend." Okay. I mean, I'm like 52 years old. I don't really care, and I'm married, so sure. I guess she's not my girlfriend. She's my wife, and we'll be of 10 years in December. But thanks for that really like well thought out and logical argument that you made. Really appreciate it. All right. So yeah, rhetoric, violent rhetoric, there's no such thing as violent rhetoric. It's just words. They can't be violent. They don't hurt you. Normalization of that, again, I'm not those aren't the guys that were essentially, calling for like people to be killed and then acting on it. It's not that. So the study identifies several priorities for future research, such as the role of mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, and neurodivergence. So, are they going to do anything about that? The team conclude there is a need to examine the pathways and mechanisms of radicalization, as well as protective factors that could mitigate risks of violent behavior. Understanding how mass attacks are glorified within incel communities and how these acts are interpreted as symbols of grievance is also critical for developing strategies to counteract such narratives. So they don't actually want to solve the problem. They just want to complain about the problem. As usual, this is how it almost always goes. So they never want to solve the problem. They just want to whine about it. Because like these guys do need help. Like a lot of men, they're in dire straits and we should be supporting them. And one of the ways to do is give them a healthy community to be a part of. I actually do believe that incel forums and Reddit and stuff are actually like they're not healthy for anyone because it becomes a weird toxic circle jerk there. And I think that what you need is something that not for the sake of monitoring anybody, but like to give them a healthier place to like feel included, like a space of their own. But the problem is that male spaces are always broken up by women and feminists. So because they're worried that there's something bad is going on, so they don't allow that to happen. So that's an issue as well. So Tangled Hierarchy says, why are you pushing a narrative? What narrative are you talking about? Okay. So hypnosis go out and unprogram all these liberals. I don't know what that means. There's no way Brian could get a girlfriend. Lindsay would be pissed. Look, one woman is enough. Okay. I can't do that. It's too much work. You guys, women are a lot of work. I'm telling you. So, all right. Let me see if Allison, I haven't heard anything from her yet. She's trying to like solve this problem. I'm sure she's going to take 10 minutes to explain how, her whole adventure. So I'm going to move on to something else in the meantime. So let's look at a video by, well, let's look at Lisa Brighton's post here on X. So here you have Lisa Brighton. I'm going to turn this off so that you guys can see it over here that are watching on the vertical. This is on X. Lisa Brighton says, a recently published peer-reviewed article in a feminist academic journal aims to broaden conventional ideas of violence to include even the anticipation of potential harm. The researchers assert that violence doesn't need intention or an instigator, and that just existing within the Western capitalist, cis hetero patriarchal regime transforms daily experiences into arenas of trauma and violence. Basically, men are perpetrators just for existing. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. This is a real published peer-reviewed article in a feminist academic journal. So we're gonna look. I'll look at this maybe on its own. Yeah, I can get real close so you guys can see it. So let's share this tab. Let me look at what you guys are saying really quick before I move on. Let's see. Botch TV says wise words from a married man. Yep. Tangled Hierarchy says people as a mixed gender term, narrative pusher. No, you don't understand how the media works, my man. If women are the primary victims or even a plurality, like a significant number, then that will be the focus of the post. They'll say this number of women were harmed in this instance. You can find countless examples. But if they don't say that and they just say people, it usually means a majority of men were the victims because it doesn't work as well. And actually, the fact that you think I'm pushing a narrative because I'm telling you how they do that means that you have actually fallen prey to that narrative yourself, because you're the one saying, well, it could be both, but I obviously it can be. But my point is, the reason why they choose those words is because they're trying to get you to see it a certain way. Because if they're too specific, then it's going to like minimize the impact they want, the emotional impact they want you to get. Cite your sources. I don't look. I'm doing the show, okay? Like if you want to like debate or whatever, you can come on the show and fight me if you want to. Stop pushing narrative and putting word in my mouth. You're so mad. Source? Question mark. Source? This guy's a soy jack in real life. Okay, so here's an article. This is the paper. Okay, I've grown. It's just like the abstract, but we can probably find the whole thing. I've grown fearful of any rustle behind me, defining anticipating discriminatory violence as violence. So if a woman feels like she's in danger, according to this paper, it means she is. This kind of attitude is why we live in such a let's just say a society that is completely in danger of losing all of its rights because women feel unsafe. And it's not just in America. This is in Canada. This is New Brunswick. This and Ottawa. Canada doesn't have free speech, by the way. So if this like passes into law, then Canada's cooked. It's done. Okay. So I am slightly feeding the trolls because Allison would totally feed the trolls. But like Tangle Hierarchy has nothing left. He's just like hurling insults. You can stay, do whatever, man. Spurg out. I get your view, and it only helps us out. So thanks for contributing to the algorithm. All right. Abstract. Marginalized people, that means not men, fear and expect violence often daily. This prompts us to ask, is anticipating violence a violence in and of itself? Asking and answering this question extends the feminist critical race violence and trauma studies project of broadening traditional understandings of violence to name ignored forms of violence as violence, epistemic or representational violence. Ultimately, we argue that anticipating discriminatory violence is violence in and of itself. What would be the purpose of making this claim? Like, that's the only thing that matters. What would be the purpose of making this claim if it isn't to basically grasp at more power and control over people? I don't see any other reason to do it. And like Canada is like, it's probably like closer to communism than any other country that the US deals with is Canada. It's probably the most fucked. And we're like right next door too. But anyway, um to do so, first we contest the common assumption that violence is intentional. The idea that violence needs to be intentional is a long-held myth that functions to deny various forms of violence. What? So can violence be unintentional? Oh, more control. What does that mean? Oh my goodness. The idea that violence needs okay, I read that. Second, we challenge the idea that violence requires a clear perpetrator. Systems of oppression and discriminatory ideologies enact violence, but there often is no clear perpetrator. When we are preoccupied with claiming that violence involves an intentional actor, we neglect to attend to the ways in which oppressive ideologies and systemic structures of institutional structures of systems marginalize people's daily lives and experiences of anticipating violence. Commie gobbledygook. Living under the Western capitalist cis heteropatriarchal regime renders the everyday a site of trauma and violence. Is anyone in the chat actually buying in any of this? Are you buying any of this? Like, do you believe in systemic Western capitalist cis heteropatriarchal regimes that just are a site of trauma and violence? Just living under that system is violence. Does anyone actually believe that? Like, are you that retarded that you think this is at all valid? And this is a peer-reviewed academic paper that is making this claim. All right. Just remember, somebody got paid a lot of money to write this drivel. Oh, you're back. Okay, what happened? No, I know. Let me just plug you in. Nobody can hear you right now. No, I can, but I haven't plugged you in, so the audience can't. I have to like put your camera in here
Okay.
with your audio. Okay, you're good now. So
Okay, just zoom in a bit because I can't do that.
how do I zoom in? Well, hold on. Let me see if I can do it over here. I might not be able to.
All right, so we just had a massive blackout. It wasn't Void Cat.
Yeah.
So now I'm on like at where I have a generator, and nobody else in the town has power, so don't tell them. But yeah, it's just well out of my hands. It's for some reason winter is unusually difficult to deal with this year or something, or maybe it's 3i Atlas, who knows?
Yeah.
The aliens, who knows? But anyway, so I'm back doing what I can to
All right.
continue.
No, it's okay. We're so I finished the incel article and now we're looking at the Lisa Brighton thing.
Okay,
So
well,
do
I
you want
presume
me to read it to you?
I caught a little bit of it, and I just want to say that I find myself, I have grown fearful of any feminist tweet, and I would like to say that that means I live in a feminist informed theocracy, and that it is violence against me, that feminism is literal, by existing, is literal violence against me, because I find it, well, I mean, I'm not particularly afraid of it because I don't think feminists can really do anything to me. Oh boy, now in before they do. But yeah, like I don't fear the cis heteropatriarchal. I fear feminists, and it's not that I'm afraid of them. Like they're I'm afraid of what they can do, because I've had it done to me and it wasn't fun. So I would say that the biggest purveyors of fear in my life are feminists themselves. How bad is my sound, by the way?
Sounds fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not too bad then.
Yeah, it's not bad.
We have an actual what are they called? Microphone at the moment. So
Or what are you using as your microphone? Your phone?
No, not my phone. I'm just using my laptop. So there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know why the phone video is so huge. Like it wants to capture my entire. I'm actually pretty close to the see, boop. I'm quite close, but it doesn't. It's like widescreen for some reason. So hello.
Well, I mean, we just gotta like deal with it for this
Yeah,
one.
I guess so. I guess so.
All right.
All right.
So yeah, so the I was reading the article or the abstract.
I wonder why men feel so lonely and isolated when their very presence is considered a reason to eject them from society.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right, let's go into Scott Galloway then.
Well, I'm not finished with this yet.
Oh, you're not?
Finish this. So no,
Okay.
no, I was reading it and then you jumped in. So okay. Systems of oppression and discriminatory ideologies enact violence. So just systems existing.
Mm-hmm.
But there is often no clear perpetrator. When we are preoccupied with claiming that violence involves an intentional actor, we neglect to attend to the ways in which oppressive ideologies and systems structure marginalized people's daily lives and experiences of anticipating violence. So again, just the existence of these systems means that people live under the system anticipating violence, which is itself violence to these people.
Mm-hmm.
Living under the Western capitalist cis heteropatriarchal regime renders the everyday a site of trauma and violence. Just living under a Western capitalist cis heteropatriarchal regime. This framework for reconceptualizing what counts as violence creates a space to move beyond violence in its most traditional forms: the punch, the slur. Anticipating violence is the logical consequence of living under systems of oppression.
And then this is all just unproven assertion. They just randomly decided to allege that this is happening, and we're supposed to agree. Like none of this stuff is proven. None of this has been subject to any kind of academic rigor. It's just supposed to be accepted at face value because they've said it, and that's it.
Yep. Also, Allison, you don't get to claim the same thing when you said earlier, like, I know you were basically throwing it in their face. I fear feminists, attacking me. That doesn't work though, because you see, they don't have power. You have power because you are on the side of men, even though you're a woman. But you are the one that has a systemic power, not them, not those, multi-million-dollar academics with tenure that are just like telling us this shit from their ivory towers, and then like sharing all of their
And
stupid
canceling everyone
articles to like people in the media and the political class and the corporations, etc., to like use that to inform law and policy. No. That's not institutional power. They're just punching up. They're always punching up, you see. You're the one punching down on poor widow women's. Anyway, Allison dropped again.
No.
Allison? Allison, I can hear you, but your camera turned off or not. Let me see if she dropped again. She dropped again. Anyway. All right. I don't know. Today might be like kind of cooked. All right. So Albatross sent us a super chat for $5 and says, was this article written by a rabbit or deer? How are you a grown human being and write about being afraid of literally everything? Pathetic. Yeah, it is pathetic. But it makes them money, you see. These are grifters, like real ones. So anyway, let me see. Allison, are you back? Oh, she's coming back, I think. Allison, are you there? All right. Well, I'm just going to keep on going. Let's see if anybody sent another super. If you want to send us a message, you can go to feedthebadger.com/just the tip to send us a message. And hopefully I will get it from you. Tangle Hierarchy is spurging out over there in the chat. Keep spurging, bro. I mean, yeah, I appreciate the view. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Stick around if you wish. Okay, let's go on to the next bit. Debate you on what? Debate me, bro.
Okay, where's the debate?
All right, you're back. What's going on now? Oh, you had to adjust the zoom.
No, now I'm using a completely different camera because that one's crapping out or some shit.
Okay.
How do you like my Vaseline camera?
Whatever. I mean, I just want to get through this because I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too.
It looks fine. All right. So, well, for some reason, there's like another whatever. All right. So I'm going to move on to Scott Galloway now. All right. So let me see. This one is, do I have like, yeah, we have, so this is News Nation. Scott Galloway is a professor at NYU of marketing and business and brand strategy and stuff. And he's done a couple of debates. I think he did one on, it was either Chris Williamson or Diary of a CEO. I don't remember which. And they were talking with some other people about what is going on between men and women. But Scott Galloway was definitely in over his head in that one. So his primary thing is like money. He does have some statistics on this, but I don't know that he has the solution. But let us get into it. So I'll do the intro and then we'll get into some of the time codes. Let me know if you can hear this.
I can.
Oh, I gotta do this thing over again. Hold on a second. Just a moment. Sometimes this thing like stops. It stops like sharing or whatever. Like it stops sharing the audio. Okay. All right. So let's try it now.
The quietest and the
going back to the beginning of this bit.
Some of the most important stories are also the quietest and the most underreported. My next guest says a widespread social crisis is simmering under the surface and in desperate need of attention. NYU professor and best-selling author Scott Galloway has dedicated much of his career to exploring why men in America are struggling. In his new book, Notes on Being a Man, Galloway offers a path forward for men and the parents of young men and boys, all dealing with feelings of isolation, suffering from economic inequality, and struggling with the evolving message of the Democratic Party. Galloway argues they need an aspirational vision of masculinity. I sat down with them a short time ago to discuss.
All right. Yeah, he was on Diary of a CEO. Thank you, Murder of Crows. Yeah, Diary of a CEO with Louise Perry. That was, I always forget her name. Every time I think of Louise Perry and I want to say her name, I think of Laura Bates, and they're just not the same at all. So I don't say anything. I'm just like, oh, it was somebody, but irrelevant. Yeah, he didn't have like, I think he was a bit in over his head. Like he wasn't, because the problem is that when you're, so like this woman does her little opening and she talks about like economic inequality, which is like a weird buzzword to say because I don't think that men are worried that there's another dude somewhere making more than them. I think men are worried that they can't afford things that would attract them a mate, so that they would have trouble buying a house or buying a car or something that they can use to like provide for a family, right? Not even like necessarily to compete with other men, but just to be able to say, here, I can, I'm able to give like a stable household to a family, and that's what I want. And another thing is that, again, I don't think men are concerned about equality or inequality, rather than they are concerned that women have really unrealistic standards right now. And a lot of that comes from perhaps social media. So,
Well, yeah.
like,
And
What?
also the underselling of men as partners. But well, I was
Yes.
listening and I'm like, well, perhaps the situation is partly due to this gigantic $1 trillion industry that siphons money from taxpayers and people who want to buy groceries to programs that teach us all not to get in relationships and have families. Like, who basically undersell men. Like we were talking about that earlier. Like maybe part of our economic woes is we now have this gigantic pipeline from the people who are productive to a bunch of people who can make really good excuses why they're owed your money. And I don't even want to talk about money. Why they're owed the things that you make. So if you go and you do all the work to have, I don't know, 300 potatoes at the end of the year, they're owed 350 of them. You know, like this is like, when they talk about economic inequality, the greatest driver of that is the government
Yeah. Absolutely.
at this point. Like, look, you every single politician, it doesn't, they're Democrat, they say they're socialist, they get into political office, and suddenly they become multimillionaires. How did that happen? You know
Billionaires.
you know how that happened? Because they invest and they have inside scoops, right? None of them have our interests in mind. And also they open up a line of cash from the taxpayer vein. And it doesn't matter. Like people are like, oh, well, we could just print ourselves out of any. Yeah. But the problem with that is every time the government gives itself a loan in the form of a treasury, your potatoes go up 50 cents. That's the way it works. They inject more money into the system. Everything costs more. And who is responsible for making all the products that underwrite this entire thing? Us. All right.
All right. So first time code. Well, he talks about inflation. I don't know if that's like really. I can just get to the part where he talks about men.
Sure.
Because like the other stuff is like he talks about, the tariffs and stuff, and frankly, like guys don't care about that. Like they just, they're that's just not related. So we'll go to 751.
I mean, I wouldn't mind talking about those things, but
You want me to go back to that?
let me see what it has to say. Discussions how Americans know inflation is real despite official numbers knowing it's down, linking economic hardships with feeling of anxiety and failure especially among young people who are struggling with housing and employment. Yes, right? Okay. Why are young people struggling right now? Because we have had years of government graft eroding the purchasing power, right? And it's all in the US, it's all underwritten by the world reserve currency. Okay? And then we have also, like, even the taxes don't even compare to losing your purchasing power through inflation. And that is literally the government writes out a loan to itself, and that it injects the economy with more money, right? And what happens? Everything costs more. And by what is the government created by writing a loan to itself? What has the government added to the net body of things that we can buy by creating a loan to itself? Nothing. The government simply takes from all of the productivity that we do, that we create, us. And then here's the other thing. Productivity throughout history has been tied to the relationship between men and women. Now, use the example of hunter-gatherer societies. Hunter-gatherer societies make it so that men's labor incentivizes women's labor, that incentivizes men's labor. Now, how do they do that? And they do that because they're at the razor's edge of survival. So if they screw this up, they're dead, right? And the way that they do this is the best hunter gets the best gatherer. And the best gatherer gets the best hunter, right? So there is incentive throughout the tribe for both men and women to provide the best that they can. And in our society, that incentive has been broken in favor of a narrative in which men exploit women and women are exploited. So we've basically broken the productive engine of our society, which is the relationship between men and women. Men and women incentivizing each other to be productive. That is the engine of our society. So yeah, everything is going to become unaffordable because we are not productive the way we were. Everything is going to cost more. Everything is going to get more difficult because everything was easier when the productive engine wasn't broken. And it is broken because of feminism. Or maybe other factors that feminism is a symptom of. But regardless, what feminism is doing is not helping. It's justifying the engine being broken and calling it progress. Okay.
Yeah. And well, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to skip this part, because I think Scott Galloway is trying to make a link between men's problems and the way they voted. Because like men overwhelmingly came out and voted for Trump in the last election. A lot of Latino men, actually, like probably the largest demographic. And I think people are scrambling to understand it. And then they're like, well, he's not going to do things for you. And it's like, we didn't vote for him because we wanted a genie. We didn't want someone to grant wishes. We weren't looking for a fairy godmother. We wanted someone that was going to not continue to destroy the country so that the people who live here, who are Americans, who are citizens, can build their own shit unimpeded by the state. Because guess what? The state is an obstacle. It is an obstacle. It serves a purpose, right? At the minimum, it protects the rights of its citizens, like by protecting its borders, by protecting, domestic threats, whatever, maybe continuing good relations with other countries so we can trade with them, but at least in a fair sense. But for the most part, like, men don't vote for Gibbs. Men vote for liberty so that they can build something, and they can't do that if the state is subsidizing their own destruction, which is why they voted the way they did. It's very simple. Like, that's just the reality. Men don't see the government as a genie or a fairy godmother. It doesn't grant wishes. It doesn't just give them shit. Okay? It's best served being out of the way. And that's what they want to do. And so it was either that or, like what women voted for, which was infinity abortions and infinity migrants that were going to take their jobs. So
And
like they were like, no, we don't want that. We want you to look out for us. And that's why they voted that way. And Scott Galloway is trying to find ways to criticize this because he thinks men want the same thing women want. And they don't. Women want infinity free shit. Men realize that's not how the world works. And in fact, if they gave them that, then men would be even worse off because women would look at men and said, I don't need you for anything now. You can just work and we'll just tax the shit out of you and we'll just give all the money to women. And that is what it does, literally. Like, have you seen?
Well, it gives to women, but takes a gigantic chunk in the meantime.
Yeah.
Like the women that they're giving this stuff to are not getting rich off of it, but somehow the people who are directing the funds to women are. And somebody says we're not billionaires, it's billionaires. Yes, billionaires are doing this shit. 100% they're doing this shit. Soros is doing this shit. That Carl Schwab is doing that shit. They're all doing it. They're all part of the system. Surprise, surprise. Your problem is...
but the government is what makes it possible. Like the government is what makes taxation like this possible.
Yes.
So I think corporations don't exist without the government. They don't.
Yes.
So you can hate on billionaires if you want to, but that doesn't answer the thing is, if a man is in a marriage with a woman and they're happy together, they don't need anyone. Like where I live, there are plenty of people who just do it all on their own, and they have a community and they raise their own, kids, they educate them, they grow their own food, they tend to their own animals. They don't need the government for that. It's literally what the Amish does. Like, they live without it and they're happy. Okay. So like the government getting involved, yes, with corporations, sure, and billionaires, sure, whatever. They form the conditions for this sickness. So like, but the solution, the antidote, if it were, is men and women coming together freely. The problem is that we've created a situation where the majority of women are not interested in the majority of men, and the men can't build anything of their own so that they can attract a woman, because women, they get more education, they make more money, they're basically doing better, but it's not organic, it's artificial. Like they get like
Breeds
bullshit
behavior.
jobs at Google and shit, where they eat avocado toast all day and play ping pong. But at some point, they're going to be replaced with AI, and they're not going to be prepared for that. And it's going to be a disaster. So
Yeah, well,
anyway,
okay. So people are saying in the special chat, tangled hierarchy. You fucking love women. Okay, why? Okay, I am a woman and I absolutely hate it when men say stuff like that. What is it you love about women? Okay? Right?
well, I don't
Is
have
it
a
our
problem with
boobs?
women.
Is it our butts? Like, what is this generic thing that all women have that you love? Obviously, I, as an individual, haven't developed it or earned it, so I don't want it. All right, and then here's the next thing. So, what do we have to say that women are to? First of all, it was feminism that I said. Okay, feminism has never been proven. There is no ideologically neutral body of evidence that proved feminist premises correct. Right? And it basically just creates the evidence for itself. So it is not proven. Nobody has to believe it. So we have to look at it for what it has done. And it has promoted this idea that men are a net negative to women. That's what it's done. It said that men oppress women. It maybe says, well, if you submit to feminism, you'll stop doing that sometime in the future, or maybe for a single second. But again, right back to the first step, it hasn't been proven. Right? And we've injected this narrative into the relationship between men and women. Where do you think productivity comes from? Where do you think desire to build something comes from, to produce something, to grow something? It comes from the desire to have a family, right? To have a wife, to have children, to have a husband, to have children. That's what makes both men and women productive. And again, go back to the hunter-gatherer example. They don't have any room for error because they're on the edge of survival and they know this. So they make sure that men incentivize the productivity of women and women incentivize the productivity of men. Where do you think the economy came from? That first group of people, two groups of people exchanging, hunters and gatherers exchanging. That's the first unit of our economy. And remains the fundamental unit of our economy, the fundamental reason why people are productive instead of just simply being consumers of things. Okay? When you destroy that, imagine productivity. It's like I don't know, like you're going to a party and everybody brings their casserole or their dessert or whatever, right? Now, productivity is making sure everybody brings something. So they all have it in the buffet. Okay. What happens when people just start taking without bringing it, without putting something back? What ends up happening if you get too many people who go to the buffet and take without putting their own item back in is you have a bare buffet. There's nothing left. That's what happens when productivity ceases. And that's what's happening with our society. Productivity is ceasing because the essential unit, the essential dynamic that creates productive people is gone. And it's gone because we have embraced a narrative. And there may be other reasons why we embrace that narrative. We have embraced that narrative that men are a net negative to women. So that men incentivizing women's productivity and women's incentivizing men's productivity, broken. We've taken a freaking baseball bat to our engine. And then we're like scratching our head. Why is there so much inflation? Why can nobody buy a house? Why doesn't it work anymore? Because we've taken a baseball bat to our engine. And while we could say, well, billionaires certainly haven't helped with their pet projects, but they aren't what actually did it. You want to continue to blame them? Sure, kill all the billionaires. See if it changes anything. It won't. You still will not have, you will still not be able to pay for your groceries. You still won't be able to buy a house. You still won't be able to buy a car. You will still never be in a position to have a family. That is not the problem. They are at best a symptom of the problem, which is consolidation of money in a smaller and smaller and smaller group of people, which part of the problem or part of the reason why that's happening is the government. Like, look at all the AI stuff happening now. Okay. All of that. And then the head of NVIDIA saying, oh, what our exit plan, well, he said it as a joke, but it probably isn't, is that we're going to become too big to fail. And then the government's going to have to come in and bail us out. You didn't think that would happen, would you? Yeah, you create a socialist system, except it's not socialism for people. It's socialism for corporations, because that's how it works. Okay.
Anyway, so let's get to the bit where he talks about men, because I think this is the part that I was more interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide, Elizabeth, for men.
Bit. He talks about men's issues here.
Yeah, it would be hard to identify a cohort that has fallen further faster than young men over the last 20 years. If you walk into a morgue and there's 5 people who died by suicide, Elizabeth, 4 are men. So 4 times more likely to kill themselves. We have a homeless and an opiate crisis, but what we really have is a male homeless and a male opiate crisis. They're 3 times more likely to be addicted, 12 times more likely to be incarcerated. Only 1 in 3 men under the age of 30 is in a relationship, whereas 2 in 3 women are in a relationship. And you think, well, that's mathematically impossible. It's not, because women are dating older because they want more.
No, they can't possibly be dating that much. That's not possible.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that's true, but I do think women are, well, here's the thing. Women tend to marry up. And so if they're making more money than the men of their same age range, then they'll look at older men who are doing even better, and they'll probably be interested in them. Because like a woman looks at her situation, compares it to like, how much better can I do? And then that's where she goes. So I don't think it's happening across the board, but I do think that a lot of women are dating older men because those men are, well, if they are economically higher up, they do. I'll put it that way. If there was a man their age that was economically making more, then they date him, but there probably aren't. So it's probably more likely they're dating older. Like a lot older, not just a few years, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, or they're dating the same guy. Like a bunch of women are with the same guy. You know that what's the Reddit page? Are we dating the same guy or something like that?
It's Facebook. And then there was the T app.
Facebook.
The T app that sort of confirmed that all these women are basically dating the same man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
All right. Let's keep going.
Men. You have now 1 in 7 men are qualified as NEETs. They're neither in education, employment, or training. They're essentially doing nothing. 1 out of 3 men under the age of 25 still lives at home. 1 out of 5 men at 30 is still living at home. So we have essentially a group of people who are becoming just very unproductive citizens. And the result is the deaths of despair, drunk driving accidents, suicide.
I'm pausing it there for a second. So he knows the problem. He sees the outcomes, right? Like the struggles that young guys are having. But he also talked earlier about all the problems with the, like financially with the current administration. And he's like baffled that men voted that way. But I think it goes back to what I was saying before. They were looking for opportunities, and the Democrats had nothing for them. They didn't even know how to talk to men. They were shitting on them constantly. They were shaming them for not supporting women. And so those men were like, well, fuck this, and now there's probably some room to breathe so they can like figure this out. And he's just like, yeah, this is really bad, but he doesn't have any answers. He's not like, these guys need some, I don't know, like we need to form some kind of social organization. We need to form a network. We need to help these guys start their own businesses because a lot of companies are hostile towards men, HR departments, things like that. So, but again, just sort of like setting the stage here, I don't think he's going to have a solution. All he can do is talk about the problem. He's got the data right, so I'll give him that.
Opiate addiction overdoses. Since 2002, for the last 23 years, more men have died incrementally, not men who are dying from deaths of despair, but additional deaths from despair is greater than the number of young men who were lost in World War II. So this is taking a real toll on households and on young men. And we were off mic talking about the struggles of young men. When a boy loses a male role model, at that moment, he's more likely to be incarcerated than graduate from college. And the interesting thing about that data, Elizabeth, is that a girl in a single...
Great, pausing it there for a second. Like a father. I mean, he says male role model, but like it starts with the father.
Father.
Yeah.
It's a father. That's
yeah.
If he loses, we are constructing a situation where we are destroying ourselves by incentivizing single motherhood.
Yep.
And I've looked at the statistics. Single mothers are, and I actually got into arguments with people who are, okay, I'm gonna go a place where it might upset the people who are anti-immigration or are against immigration. Single mothers are worse than immigrants. They vote.
That's not anti-immigration. That just gives me a scope on how bad the single mom problem is. I'm still anti-immigration, though, Allison. That hasn't changed. But I'm also anti-single mom. So, you can just add that to the list.
All right. So they vote overwhelmingly Democrat. And at this point in time, overwhelmingly Democrat is basically just making more excuses for governments to print themselves blank checks that we all have to pay for in our groceries. Right. And I mean, honestly, both sides are sort of like this at this point, but there may be some hope with one. But they not only do they keep voting for people who increase the spending even more than the other side that increases the spending, they also are a net drain on the tax base. So they take out hundreds of thousands more than they put in. Okay. Now, the only group of people who is really shouldering the system is men, in particular married men who are paying the most amount of taxes. After that is unmarried men, and then married women, and then single mothers. So it goes single mothers, huge negative, married men, huge positive, single men, smaller positive, married women, smaller positive than that. So it goes back to the whole thing that men and women incentivize each other's productivity. So a married woman incentivizes the married man's productivity. He's putting a lot more back into the system. Single women with children take more out than they put in. Single women put a little bit back in, but not too much. And then there's the statistics out of New Zealand that show that women only ever take more out of the system than they put in. So we got that. Educated immigrants, okay, they actually put in to the system in terms of their taxes just under married men and just over single men, right? Unfortunately, they also vote for the let's write more blank checks, let the government writing more blank checks party, okay? Which most of those blank checks, I don't know if you guys have noticed, go to corporations first. So yeah, you're getting hoodwinked by these people, these individuals, whatever party, the Democratic Party, you're definitely getting hoodwinked because they say that they're for the little guy. They're not. They're for whatever excuse enables government to justify printing yet more blank checks for itself. And I'm not saying like the Republicans also have shown that they spend a lot too. This is a government problem. The government can only ever take from the economy. It can't create an economy, and it can't add to the economy. It only ever takes from it. But the economy itself, the fundamental, is the relationship between men and women. And right now, the government is paying for a narrative to destroy that relationship. And you can, like, this guy that I think his name is Tangled came in and he was like, "Oh, gender war, gender war." Sure. Let's get rid of the gender war. Get rid of feminism. What do you think it is to say that men oppress women? What do you think that means in terms of a gender war? Don't you think that's pretty much starting one? And if you want to stop it, then you got to stop it. You got to stop the narrative that men oppress women. Otherwise, what you really are saying is you want one side to win it. Okay.
All right. Anyway, let's get into the rest of this.
Parent home has similar outcomes, same rates of college attendance, same rates of self-harm. What it ends up is that while boys are physically stronger, they're emotionally and neurologically much weaker than girls. And what we're seeing is the kind of economic sucking sound of economic prosperity being transferred from young.
So he's saying that boys are emotionally and psychologically weaker than girls. Why are 25% of young women on SSRIs? I don't think that's true. But I think that men are actually doing well considering the constant demonizing. And they haven't like burned the country down.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of amazing, to be honest, that they're like this. They haven't started a violent revolution. And I hope they don't. But I mean, I think that speaks to their stoicism, despite everyone telling them that stoicism is bad.
So Olivia Callow says men do oppress women. No, they don't. That is your desire to deny a part of your humanity speaking, Olivia. I don't want to play that game personally.
There's no evidence of that.
No.
NovaFan21 gives $1 and said, huh?
It's never been proven. In fact, the reverse.
No, it's never been proven. You can make claims, but those are not arguments. You're just saying what you were told to say by your teachers and by the TV and by the news people and by the internet people.
Okay, I just want to respond to
You're just
Olivia.
following the line, but they said this. You never questioned it. You never asked yourself if that was true. You never looked at the data. You're just following the line. Congratulations, Lemming. You're just saying what you were told to say. So I hope you get a cookie for that.
Olivia says, if you show up in family court, you're likely to get 50-50 custody. Yeah, in Kentucky, where they now have a presumption of shared custody.
I hope that's everywhere.
And we hope that goes everywhere. You can thank people like us for that.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay.
NovaFan21 gave us $1 on Rumble.
Okay.
And says, my favorite part of special chat is how you say feminism is bad and they'll argue with you, but praise patriarchy is good and they refuse to prove you wrong. Well, they need the premise of patriarchy to exist so that they can continue to have their arguments. And of course, it's not real patriarchy. It's their sort of twisted, evil, Dr. Doom version of patriarchy, which is not proven either. But anyway. All right, back to Scott Galloway.
Which has happened over the last 40 years, is having a disproportionately negative effect on young men.
So you're saying that young women are better equipped somehow to deal with all the headwinds that are derailing young men?
That's what the data shows. When a
woman no, it doesn't.
How is it possible if women are oppressed?
No, well, they're just that strong, right? No, that's not.
Yeah, they're just that strong, right?
Well, yeah. Why don't we subject women to a sort of society-wide narrative that they are to blame for everything? Like, it's okay. So we got the special chat, right? And we got some people flipping out in the special chat because I said that
they're communists and feminists in there. That's all they do. They're right out of Reddit. Welcome.
So they're flipping out about me saying that women are not oppressed by men. But I bet this is the first time in their life they've ever heard that statement. It's entirely possible for all of them that this is the first time you've ever heard that. So I invite you to think, when were you convinced that women were oppressed by men? And what argument was used? Okay. What did that argument also include the situation for men? Because I'm truly curious. Like when did you decide to agree with the argument that women are oppressed? When did you sit there and have somebody say, okay, well, this is the argument for it? And was it just simply, oh, women are suffering in this way? Well, did they point out how men are suffering? Did they tell you how they were weighting the suffering of men versus the suffering of women? Like, what was the argument that convinced you of this? Instead of writing more BS in the special chat, tell me that. Tell me the argument that convinced you that women were oppressed. Go ahead. Operationalize this. All right, let's continue.
All right.
Relationship. Oftentimes she pours that energy back into her friend network and her professional life. If a man hasn't cohabitated or been married by the time he's 30, there's a 1 in 3 chance he's going to be a substance abuser. There's this cartoon, Elizabeth, of a woman.
I'm going to pause it there for a second. So he says when women, they like need to release tension or whatever they're going through, they go to their friend group or their workplace, and I guess they feel free to do that. And men, he just doesn't even address whether or not men can do that too. But remember, whenever men try to form a space, it gets broken up because when men are not allowed to fraternize. I mean, I'm granted they figure it out a lot of times, but I guess lately it's been harder. You know, maybe the lockdowns did something about that. I don't know, but it's definitely been a phenomenon that no one can ignore now. And so they're like starting to panic. I think that's why this is like coming up more and more.
Yeah, this is like, he says that men are weaker. And yet, again, men are subject to a society-wide threat narrative that blames them for literally everything going wrong in society. Right? And they're also subject to this continuous campaign against their spaces, being able to socialize. Remember, gaming, comics, all of this stuff had to be colonized, and men have to be subject to oversight. And of course, the justification for that oversight is the feminist narrative that men are somehow socializing each other to patriarchy. So any moment where men are together alone is a potential vector of patriarchy into society. So, you know, you have to destroy all of men being able to just hang out with each other and support each other. And I've seen this myself. I've seen support groups for men dealing with suicide, men dealing with rape, men dealing with domestic violence. I've seen them broken up by feminists,
etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them broken up by feminists, right? And so men's spaces, even men's spaces of support, men's sheds are recently, now they have to open up to women. So men don't have spaces that aren't under attack, right? And then they don't have any artificial boosting. Even they just don't have any artificial boosting. The unique, like male-only bursaries, scholarships, hiring quotas. And despite all of this, they're still responsible for most of the work that maintains society. Day after day after day. I don't know, Scott. I think that you're full of shit when you say they're weak. Maybe they're just carrying more. All right, let's move on.
All right.
In her 30s who didn't find romantic love, sitting in the windowsill with cats, staring out depressed. Like, what a tragedy that Lisa didn't find love. Guess what, Elizabeth? Lisa's just fine. The data's clear. Widows are happier after their husband dies. Widowers are less happy after their wife dies. Women in relationships do live longer, 2 to 4 years. Men in relationships live 4 to 7 years longer. So just the outcomes, the rates of self-harm, it ends up, the bottom line is men need relationships more than women. And essentially women are more resilient. They don't know if it's because women have had to endure menstruation or childbirth, but it ends up.
Or maybe it's because women's spaces aren't constantly under attack, except for now.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, by some men. But you know what? Y'all voted for that, so I don't have any
Yeah,
I don't
no
have any
skin in my game.
regrets.
No skin in that game. But seriously,
Nope, don't care. You voted for it.
but like this is okay. Why don't we again? Like I said to that feminist, who said you just want women to be forced to marry, and I'm like, no, let's just stop having people pay for these narratives that men are so bad for women. Like, stop paying for them. Kick that shit out of that. Get rid of all of the science, like the feminist science that has no actual empirical validity, which is all of it. Just get rid of it. It shouldn't have been there in the first place. Like, just get rid of all of that and let's see how it happens. Like, get rid of all of the all the male space breaking rhetoric and activity, and just let men have their spaces. Like, just let men be together, being friends. Stop having oversight over that. Okay, stop breaking.
I'd like to see the data, because I don't know if you can measure, like, if you can, because I'd like to see the data just out of curiosity, because there's a lot of unhappy men and women. In fact, women are a lot more neurotic about the future. So I don't understand how, I mean, whether they're in a relationship or not. I don't see how that's a thing.
Angled hierarchy. Tell me what argument convinced you that women were oppressed? All of you who assert that. What argument convinced you? When were you convinced? Identify when you didn't believe that and when you learned that, and tell me the argument that convinced you. Until you do, shoosh. You don't even know your own mind. You don't even know where your core beliefs, those sacredly held things that you believe, even came from. Okay.
All right.
Frightening statistic, 2 15-year-olds, a boy and a girl, both sexually molested. Neither crime is less heinous than the other. The boy is 10 times more likely to kill himself later in life. So what we're coming to grips with the fact is that men and boys are neurologically weaker and need relationships more. Now, I want to be clear, that doesn't
There are no services for boys who are victims of sexual assault. And they're subject to a society-wide campaign of gaslighting and harassment. Dude, why did this become about, oh, men are weaker? Like,
yeah, it's a weird framing, isn't it? It's like,
it is a really weird
maybe boys need support that they're not getting. Like, if something happens to a woman or a girl, like, people come out of the woodwork to support her. So yeah, she's probably less suicidal after that. I mean,
There's one thing. There's one thing that about disclosure on surveys regarding to sexual assault. Women do it very quickly, men don't. Like, for whatever reason, if a woman is subject to a sexual assault, she's just like, I can't wait to talk about it on this survey. Whereas guys are like, it takes a while for them to just warm up to the idea of talking about it. Why is that? Why is it that women feel so empowered to talk about these things that happen to them, and yet men feel like they have to keep it to themselves? Right? You really think that's just quote unquote toxic masculinity? Or is it because nobody wants to help them?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
The relationships, no group is expected or responsible for servicing another group of men, but the reality is men need relationships more than women.
Men need relationships more than women. Well, I mean, I don't think that proves your
Satirical
claim,
hierarchy says, when I found out my girlfriend was abused and harassed from 11-15. Okay, so because I know men who have been sexually assaulted by women, that means matriarchy exists. Because there exists criminal women who abuse men, that means matriarchy exists. Because there exists criminal men. What about, okay, so your girlfriend is subject to a criminal activity. What about all of the men who go out of their way to punish, incarcerate, bring to justice men who are criminal. They don't count? How many men do I know who are assaulted? Okay, how old are you, Tangled? How old are you? Are you perhaps under the age of 30? Because I got a statistic for you. And you're probably going to completely ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might be wasting your time here.
No, but you know, like
but
this.
It could be a teachable moment for the audience.
It could be a teachable
Guy,
moment.
you are way in over your head, whoever you are. So not
Nope.
prepared for this, but go ahead.
All right. How many men do you know that were assaulted? I don't have to give you how many men I know because I can tell you the statistics and they're getting worse and more terrifying. Millennial women, that is women actually should be classified as women that were like under 35. Rape using weapons 2 to 3 times more than millennial men or any other generation. Their attitudes towards male victims of sexual assault have gotten worse since the 70s, the 80s. So women who are more my generation have better attitudes towards male victims of sexual assault than younger women. So the direction of attitudes in women for male victims of sexual assault is getting worse, and their behavior is getting worse. Worse. Now go ahead and ignore that. Let's keep going.
Yeah. That's the end of the video.
All right. Do we want to do the patriarchal crystal smash or the patriarchy smashing crystals? I think that we'll get quite the appreciative audience in the special chat today. I'm sure they're going to go out and buy some crystals to smash patriarchy.
Yeah, this might help you fight patriarchy.
Yeah, let's help completely. Let's go on a completely different note. Now for something completely different. For those of you in the special chat who are insisting that they want to
James Alley says, Jean, you mean Jean Carroll fantasized about you mean you're talking about, I forget her name, but yeah, Jean Carroll, but like if she fantasized about it, then it must have happened though, right? Because even if women think that it might have happened or could happen, that means it happened. That was like literally the paper that I was looking at earlier. If they feel like it happened, Jean Carroll, that was her name. If they feel like it happened, then it happened, or it could happen. Therefore, we should treat it like it happened. That's where we are now. That's the situation we're in. All right. So, would you like to get some? This is from BalticMermaid.com. You can find it, so you can fight the patriarchy with crystals. Favorite crystals for fighting the patriarchy set. $15, guys. Only $15. This is not a sponsor. I'm just looking at it. Maybe some of you out there in the audience that are really worried about the patriarchy, and you know that these like thought crime laws you're trying to put into place might not quite cover it. Maybe you need some magic crystals just to like just to like get around that. Okay.
Totally serious.
This is a totally serious thing. Okay, so we believe that everyone deserves access to medical care and medical freedom. You mean paid for by men. $5 from each satirical crystal set sold will be donated to Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project, WRAP, the largest national independent and nonprofit abortion fund. Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project has been offering financial aid for abortion or emergency contraceptives since 1991. They provide funds directly to health clinics and doctors across the nation and boast relationships with reputable clinics like Planned Parenthood. Ooh, wow. The one started by Margaret Sanger, the totally like not, eugenic feminist. Okay. You can also make a donation, so you can just skip buying the crystals. But why would you do that? Why deny yourself the mana? You'll get one of each tumbled stone. We should look and see what they do, what the powers are, what the magic is. But I want to read them off anyway. Carnelian, Tiger Eye, Labradorite, Amazonite, and citrine in a little cloth bag and an info card with pictures above. So yeah, they'd say like there's some things. Let's see what they do. Favorite crystals for fighting the patriarchy. Carnelian, it's orange, for the fiery rage that is burning inside you. What does it do though? Is it just to stoke the fire? Oh, these like lightsaber crystals. Yes. Amazonite for the strength and stamina to argue with annoying pro-lifers.
What is this? Is just like okay. And,
Yeah.
why? Okay, here's the thing.
I think, look, Alison, I'll tell you what these exist for. These exist so that when feminists buy them, they can go to their little, gatherings at like whatever protests they're going to, and they can show them to their friends and say, look, this is how much of a better feminist I am than you because I bought these for $15. Where are your crystals? And no, I'm serious. It's just like when the election happened and women were like getting blue heart tattoos on TikTok, and they were telling other women to get blue heart tattoos. There was a signal like, do you have your blue heart tattoo or are you my enemy? That's what it was, right? Or, I mean, there's like countless, like the ketchup bottle costumes, the pussy hats. It's just like whatever the new trend is. And it's interesting because it is a way to make money, like a real grift, not the stuff we're being accused of, but like a real one, because like I had to tell you guys, but feminism is very mainstream. It's extremely popular, extremely still. Okay. So if you want to make money, if you want to grift, be a feminist and you're going to make bank. I can tell you right now, if I quit this show and I threw a tantrum or whatever, I like yelled at Allison, I say, fuck this. I hate MRAs. I'm a feminist now. I would get phone calls tomorrow to like do content for, fucking Planned Parenthood, in fact, who has been not caught per se, but it's been discovered they have paid off a lot of activists to like create content promoting abortion. That's where you make your money. But anyway.
Yeah. I find it amazing. Like that we just went through an article where incels simply talking about not having sex being a problem, that they have a problem with it. Like
they struggle with.
Yeah, they're not in a relationship. They're not able to access things that they think normal people get, like a sex life. And that's being seen as entitled. But requiring having abortion in order to entertain yourself with sex is a human right. And then also having other people pay for it. Like, I'm pro-choice again, but I'm pro-choice. That means I don't think people should have to pay for it, except for the person who's choosing it. Okay.
All right.
So this is just okay. All right, guys.
Yeah, stupid.
If you don't like
Tiger Eye to keep a resilient, fuck you to Supreme Court. Citrine for confidence to shove this stone up Clarence Thomas's hypocritical ass. This is meant as satire and not to be taken seriously. Please don't. That's not a threat of violence. But like, if somebody actually did do that, they'd be celebrating on TikTok. Like when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, they celebrated, even though they were like, no, I'm not pro-violence, but that was awesome. Labradorite, protection from negative forces, Mitch McConnell. Well, I don't like him either, so fuck that guy. Okay, Allison, that's it. I read them all.
Okay, all right. I guess I should take a look to see if there's anything gone through the pipeline. See if you guys sent something through the voles that would really piss off our feminist guests in the special chat, by the way. So give them a few minutes. Feedthebadger.com/support if you want to support the show. If you want to enable us to predict what people are going to be talking about in 5 to 10 years. Again, feedthebadger.com/support. Get a little, spoilers for the future of the human race right here. We got them hot off the presses. And if you want to make comment, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip at any point. You don't have to do it now. You can cogitate on the things that we've been talking about and send something through at your leisure at any time. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. I don't see anything. I guess just that Mario. Thank you, Mario, for $50. Very much appreciated. And I'll probably have to shake down the Discord because you guys are quiet and the special chat is loud.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've overcome adversity. Void Cat destroyed the stream, at least my half, and then the blackout destroyed the stream, but we're still here. We chugged through the end. So I'm going to hand it back to Brian to do our farewells, and then we shall continue on.
All right, let's get out of here then. All right, if you guys liked this video, please hit like or dislike. If you dislike the video, it doesn't matter. We still win because you help out the algorithm either way. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. If you want to like continue to troll us, that's fine too. I welcome it. And please leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about what we talked about on the show today. You'll find links to all of the things we talked about in the description of this video, so you can watch it yourself for the full context if you must have it. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.